Shalom, shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Kakadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders, the GMS, that rule and teach word and scripture and salutations to the Akim that are doing his work in truth and faith and in all sincerity. Today's lesson is basically going to be a reminder, one of the big prophecies that is written of in the scrolls, from the Most High to Yahweh Shai, to the major prophets, to the minor prophets, all must speak the same language, all right? If Yahweh Shai was speaking a different language than Yahweh, then that would make Yahweh Shai wrong. So we all have to speak. Everything has to come from up top. And so one of the prophecies is World War III, so to speak. All right, that's one of the prophecies. The other prophecies is a MOTB. Okay, especially here in Babylon the Great. Although it's going to be all over, this is the epic center of major judgment from Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. And so this is the military channel. Putin's nuclear arsenal is huge. Will Russia start World War III? Okay, and I'll let this play.
It's a bargain! Ollie's is opening the doors Wednesday, September 27th at 9 a.m. in Denton. Find us off Interstate 35 next to Planet Fitness in the old dirt cheap. You've never seen deals like this before. Stop on by.
Ollie's! Good stuff, cheap!
Small habits produce big results. ReguFit promotes digestive regularity, helping you keep the colon free of toxins.
For decades, the threat of nuclear Armageddon has kept Russia and the West out of a direct confrontation. The prospect of global nuclear war has been a line that neither side is willing to cross. But now, analysts who study Russia's nuclear strategy say they are increasingly worried that this stark nuclear line is becoming blurred. As Russia's conventional war in Ukraine falters, thanks in large part to Western weapons and training, some see an effort to bend nuclear deterrence to fit the current conflict. Others say that long-standing policies in Russia might encourage nuclear use to prevent it from losing the war. With neither side showing signs of backing down, the possibility of a nuclear strike appears more real.
And Salakia, side note for those that think that your sword is going to save you, in a time of calamity, in a time of Jacob's trouble, if Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai hasn't sanctioned it, it's not going to happen. It's already written that 2/3 shall be cut off and die. The 2/3 of the nation of Israel, which are unique, so-called Negroes, Latinos, you Native Americans, and those of the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans that look like the other nations, but bloodline are tied directly to the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So with that being said, we are looking for deliverance. At the end of the day, this is what it's about. We're looking for deliverance throughout the whole gauntlet of the despair that's to come in the world, and to be saved and delivered out of it. And so this is what we're obedient to the fact, and we are in fear to do the Lord's work to the best of our ability, because we've seen the terrible powers of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and it's just going to escalate. And so with that, I digress.
Than it has in decades. We are at this fairly dangerous junction, says Pavel Podvig, a senior researcher at the UN Institute for Disarmament Research, who tracks Russia's nuclear forces. Podvig says he thinks the likelihood Russia would use a nuclear weapon is extremely low, but he adds, "I do worry." Diverging doctrines. At the height of the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union amassed enormous stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Many were so-called strategic weapons, large warheads delivered by submarines and intercontinental ballistic missiles, and designed to be used in a global thermonuclear war. But the two nations also had thousands of tactical nuclear weapons that could be smaller in size and were able to be delivered by planes, short-range missiles, or even artillery. NATO powers prepared to use such weapons, for example, if they were faced with an overwhelming conventional Soviet attack on Western Europe. By the 1990s, the US had largely given up on tactical nuclear weapons. New, more precise conventional weapons had the same long-range strike capability with none of the radioactive fallout. And the tactical nukes were seen as a security risk. Because they were smaller and more portable, terrorists might
know the Persians are from Elam. Okay, those are the ones that are from that particular area, that landmass over there. Okay, not quite super close to Israel, but in that particular region, in that particular area. So Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai is going to make sure that, okay, whereas the Persians were the dominant force between the Medes and the Persians, now this particular bear, which is Russia, is going to be sloped the other way, whereas the Medes are going to be the dominant half between the Medes and the Persians. So and by Putin being in the land of Gog, Magog, okay, Gog being in the land of Magog, he's in that region, in that area, all right, he's in that particular land. And so this is going to be definitely a major prophecy as far as, some of the brothers call it the meat grinder. And a lot of people are going to go into this war, they're not going to come out. Okay, they're just going to keep throwing in new bodies, so to speak. This is just it's going to keep going, and then it's just going to escalate from there. It's going to start out with boots on the ground. That's how this war is going to start out. Okay, it's going to start out with everybody going over there to the Middle East fighting.
More easily get their hands on one. Russia, however, decided to keep its tactical arsenal, says Anya Fink, a research scientist at the Center for Naval Analysis who has studied Russian nuclear doctrine. The decision has been driven in large part by what the Russian military sees as a vast gap in conventional weapons technology. For Russia, nuclear weapons, in particular non-strategic nuclear weapons, are really intended to counterbalance what they see as US and NATO conventional superiority, Fink says. Today, Russia is believed to have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, including 1,000 to 2,000 tactical nuclear weapons, says Hans Christensen, head of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists, a Washington think tank. While the public often imagines tactical nukes as smaller weapons, Christensen says the Russian arsenal is diverse.
This is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. It's a future prophecy, by the way. Okay. And say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, and the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. So, whereas Russia, okay, was the USSR, it's no longer the USSR, but Putin's trying to put that area back together. He's trying to piece it back together. The USSR, okay? So, and say thus, okay, this is verse 3, and say, Thus says the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, and all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company of buckler and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, and the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many peoples with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. And so Russia's going to be protecting these so-called Middle Eastern areas, or these areas that are not allied with the U.S., and Russia's assembling an army to go against America. And so, like it says, Persia and Ethiopia and Libya, all of them join forces together to fight against this whore, to fight against the beast, okay, which are America and the European countries, NATO and the EU.
They have a very wide range of explosive yields, going up to a couple of hundred of kilotons, so much more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, he says. Rattling the saber. At the start of the Ukraine conflict, Russian President Vladimir...
Now, mind you this, Russia does have nuclear arms. Okay? It's in a thing called Project Paperclip, when both United States and Russia split the scientists down the middle. And that's probably too loose of a term, but, you know, Russia had a portion of scientists, and America had a portion of scientists of Germany when Germany was taken down during World War II. So with that being said, they have nuclear technology, and they are ready to go to war.
Putin put his nuclear forces on a special mode of combat duty. It was later determined that the move did little more than boost staffing at nuclear weapons sites. Still, as the invasion began, it was a clear reminder to the West of Russia's powerful nuclear deterrent. To a certain extent, that classic nuclear deterrence has been effective at containing the Ukraine war, says Olga Oliker, the director of Europe and Central Asia for the International Crisis Group. We have seen nuclear deterrence work on the part of both Russia and Western countries, she says. So far, NATO troops are not fighting inside Ukraine, and Russia isn't attacking neighboring NATO countries either. But as Russia's war has stalled, thanks in large part to supplies from the West, Putin has renewed his nuclear threats. During a speech in late September, as he annexed Ukrainian land, Putin said more directly that he might be willing to consider a nuclear strike in the current conflict. In the event of a...
Putin don't care about going to nuclear war, because he knows that that's the only way that he can fight against this horde, this beast. There's no other way.
A threat to the territorial integrity of our country and to defend Russia and our people, we will certainly make use of all weapon systems available to us, he said. This is not a bluff, a liker says in part. The renewed talk of nuclear weapons may be an effort to compel the West to reduce or stop its shipments of supplies to Ukraine. In other words, Putin is seeking to push his nuclear deterrence to do more. Russia keeps trying to have the deterrence go a little bit further, she says. But the statements also hint that Putin may be trying to expand the territory he can.
Follow me to the source of refreshment for your body.
And defend with nukes. Russia recently annexed 4 regions of Ukraine. Fink says Russia's official policy is that it would only use nuclear weapons to defend its own territory. The big question is, are the parts of Ukraine that Russia has attempted to join to itself Russian territory or not?
And that's what's big on and hot right now, is this war between Russia and Ukraine, with America and its allies sending weapons and arms to Ukraine to fend off against Russia. Because Russia wants that land back.
Nuclear use. Fink says that she still believes that Putin is unlikely to take the war nuclear. As the drone and cruise missile strikes of the past week illustrate, Russia has plenty of powerful conventional weapons it can use to attack Ukraine. There's other ways to make a point to the Ukrainians that don't have to do with the use of nuclear weapons, she says. But Matthew Kronig, a professor of international relations at Georgetown University, thinks that the conflict is moving in a way that may push Putin closer to making that fateful choice. With Ukraine on the offensive, Russia's conventional military forces depleted, and a chaotic conscription process underway at home, he says, Putin is likely to face more and more domestic political pressure. I think as his position gets more dire, the more willing he might be to gamble for resurrection with nuclear use, Kronig says. If Russia did decide to respond with a nuclear strike, most experts agree they wouldn't use their weapons in an attack against frontline Ukrainian troops. Tactical nukes were originally designed to take out big, juicy Cold War-era targets, such as columns of armored tanks or aircraft carriers. Ukraine's forces are spread out.
Now, I said that to say this is not just on the table, this is in motion right now. It's just not directly in your face, but it's definitely in motion. This war will happen. Whether the people like it or not, this is prophecy. This is something that was mandated by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and will happen. And will happen soon. Okay? We can't put an actual date on when this will happen, but we can say that it's going to happen soon.
Putin would have to use a bunch of little nukes, which would create a radioactive mess his troops would also have to deal with. More likely, says Fink, is that Russia would decide to use a single nuclear weapon to try and freeze the conflict. That weapon could be used as a demonstration over the Black Sea, or even at a test site inside of Russia. Or it could be against any one of a number of fixed targets inside Ukraine, such as those the Russian military has hit with cruise missiles and drones in recent days. Podvig worries that given the resolve of Ukraine in the West, Putin will choose to do something more extreme. For the use of a nuclear weapon to be shocking, you really need to make it clear that you are willing to target civilians, and that means, to put it bluntly, killing a lot of people, he says. Kronig says that if Russia did use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, he believes the U.S. would have to respond with force. Otherwise, we essentially teach Putin and the world that nuclear coercion pays. He believes a conventional strike, perhaps on the military unit that launched the nuke, would send a powerful message. Olga Olikar says such a strike would carry huge risks. I think the Russians would see a conventional attack on their nuclear capacity as effectively a nuclear attack, she says. Things could escalate further from there, but Oliker points out that all of this is still highly theoretical. She hopes that the two sides will still find a way to begin de-escalating the conflict. If I try to tell myself a story of how to get there, it requires a whole bunch of leaps and jumps, she says. But the path to global thermonuclear war also has some leaps and jumps.
So there you have it. This is definitely on the table. I close out here giving all praise to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua B'Hashem Kadash. Again, double honors to the apostles and the elders and the brothers and that are like-minded, teaching the same doctrine. Okay, pushing closer to the kingdom. And Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Until next time, shalom.